Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that well-deserved break from lectures. I feel like I drone on sometimes. But now I want to get into forming and maintaining personal relationships, which is our next chapter. But really, I want to focus on the fact that for the last amount of weeks, I think it's like 11 weeks, 10 weeks, we've really been focusing on all the little pieces of interpersonal communication. And now these next couple of chapters, we'll put them into motion, so to speak. We're going to see how we utilize them and how we can utilize them in relationships, in conflict, and so on. So first and foremost, we have what we're going to go over today, and that is why relationships matter, the nature of personal relationships, forming and maintaining social bonds, and stages of relationship development. So at the very first portion of our chapter, we talk about how we as humans form social relationships because we need to belong. And this brings in the need to belong theory. And that just says that each of us is born with a fundamental drive to seek, form, maintain, and protect strong relationships. So we need those social bonds to be interactive and emotionally close. And we can still develop and maintain many important social relationships online. And you can see how we do those these days. But I want you to take a minute and think back to the very beginning of the pandemic and how you felt when we originally were told we couldn't see people, you had to stay within your household. And then even from the beginning to the later stages, how it turned into maybe something like, oh, I get to work from home. I don't care. And you were kind of using that banked social interaction that you had pre-pandemic, but it clearly dwindled as we realized that this was going to take more and more time. And then we with that need to belong, we're missing that social interaction, that social aspect. And even though we were doing them online, it just wasn't enough. And then with social relationships, there's also rewards. And so we'll talk about emotional, material, and health rewards. The first example of a emotional reward, I want you to take a watch at the, again, Friends example. I promise I will start looking into other TV shows. These are just the ones that I actually know off the tip of my head because I watch these shows consistently. So this example of emotional reward is from Friends, and Rachel announces, well, not announces, Rachel finds out she's pregnant at Monica's wedding. And so emotional rewards are the relationship gives you opportunity to feel loved and appreciated and gives you emotional satisfaction. And so that's the emotional reward of it. And so in this example, you see that thanks to this long-lasting relationship she has with Monica and Phoebe, she's really reaping the benefits, the emotional rewards of this friendship during that really trying moment. And on the flip side, a little funnier example. We're talking material, and then I want to sneak health into there, and you'll see why in a second. The example I've used is from New Girl, and Nick Miller is announcing that he is moving out of the loft that he shares with all his roommates to move in with his, what we could call a toxic ex-girlfriend that he's now dating again. And inadvertently, so they stage this intervention type thing they think they're going to all be on the same page and tell Nick that he's making a mistake and that he shouldn't do it. But inadvertently in this scene, you do see the way that they have helped him and how he has benefited materially and maybe a little from a health perspective. Winston says, I don't know what I'm going to do with all that money that I don't have to give you to bail you out for rent. And so he's explaining that like Nick benefits from a material perspective, and material rewards are thinking of a friend, like in this example, a friend loaning you $20. That's a material reward of a friendship because you have bonded and built that relationship, that they trust that they can loan you money at any point. And then the health reward is, this one's a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going with it. It's expressing, they're expressing that like he's not a good adult. He often forgets to do things to maintain his life. Later in the series, Schmidt talks about how he grinds up vitamins and puts it in his food but when he's not paying attention. And so the tenets of 4D really come together in this relationship, this friendship among each other, and take care of each other. And they're all really talking about it in this episode or in this clip too. So take a look at that. So we're looking at emotional, material, and health rewards. Emotional is feeling emotionally satisfied, having someone there for you when you need them the most. Material is maybe letting you stay at their house, loaning you money, giving you things that you may need, like the phrase like, oh, he would give me the shirt off his back. And then health rewards is, I mean, science has shown that, and we talked about this in an earlier chapter, people who have close bonds and friendships have a less likelihood of heart attack and stroke or heart disease. So that's part of a health reward, but also somebody keeping you accountable, maybe exercising with you, having the motivation to go out and keep yourself healthy. They notice things that you might not notice and might tell you to go to a doctor. So that's what I mean by health rewards. Okay. And then while we do get rewards, social relationships also carry costs. So friendship, we probably heard this too, friendship is a two-way street. While you may take those rewards, you also have to give in return. So just as you lean on your friends for help, they need to rely on you and you need to be there for them to maintain that healthy relationship. So we talk about time, emotion, money, and physical investments. And so sometimes maybe a friend's asking you for help to move. And that friend drove you to the airport one day. It's reciprocal. So he did something for you, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. They're friends, and this is what friends do. Same with money, emotional investment. Maybe somebody needs you for a moment while they're going through a hard time, maybe a loss in the family, a breakup. Those are all different types of ways that you invest and you pay the cost of a friendship. So take a minute to think, can you think about a time that you were in a lopsided friendship? Maybe you were giving, but you didn't feel like you were getting enough in return. How did that relationship progress, or maybe it fell apart? And so as you think of those lopsided relationships, and knowing how they felt, maybe we work towards evening out those kind of relationships or deciding what to do with those in the future. Close relationships require commitment. And so commitment is just by definition the desire to stay in a relationship no matter what happens. And commitment can look different in different perspectives. So emotional, social, legal, and financial perspectives of what commitment may look like. So emotional, right? You commit to somebody. You commit to give your love and affection to somebody. Social commitment, being there for somebody, being, what's the word I'm looking for? Showing face in social gatherings. Legal and financial. Legally, you're married to somebody, or sharing finances. Those are all different ways of showing commitment. Um, and then along with commitment, close relationships also foster interdependence. And interdependence is where each person's behaviors affect everyone else in the relationship. So I refer to this as like being your partner's teammate or being your friend's teammate. You're on the same team, so every time you do something, it impacts the entire team. Close relationships usually have high levels of interdependence. And so if you look at it solely from a marriage or partner standpoint, you'll find in a lot of cultures, there is that interdependence. And we'll talk about cultures later. Close relationships also require continued investment. So far we have commitment, interdependence, and now investment. And investment is the commitment of resources to the relationship. People in intimate relationships often are aware of how much they invest. And resources, again, can be physical, financial. It's putting in what you expect to also take out. And making sure that you're investing in relationships, and the more you bring into it, the better. I don't want to say the more you can get out, because that's not necessarily true. But in a healthy relationship, you want to try and put in as much as you're getting as well. However, with close relationships, we have some sort of tensions at all points. It's never a perfect relationship. And close relationships can create dialectical tensions. And that is just conflict between two important but opposing needs. So you like autonomy versus connection. Whereas autonomy is desire to be one's own person and rely on no one. Connection is, again, kind of being interdependent, being connected. So that could cause tension. And then again, openness versus closeness. Openness is, by definition for this scenario, is more disclosure and honesty, whereas closeness might want less disclosure. I wouldn't necessarily say dishonesty, but more so focusing on the fact that they don't want to disclose as much information, whether that be about themselves or about the relationship to others. And then predictability versus novelty. Predictability is the desire for consistency and predictability. And so whereas like novelty is more spontaneous, wanting spontaneity, predictability is thinking about maybe being in that relationship and having that confirmation of how, that routine of how things are going to be. And that brings you peace. So while some people in relationships may seek out that predictability or that relationship for predictability, they might find somebody who fits that for them, but still expects some sort of novelty level in that relationship. And so when we have these dialectical tensions, there are many ways or several strategies to manage them when we experience them. And so we'll go through the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, I had to count those. We'll go through the 8 that we talk about in the textbook, starting with denial. And so denial is where one side of the tension just ignores the other. So if one person has a desire to be autonomous, the other person may just ignore that and give them all, like, still try to like cling to that person, and show the connectedness rather. And so essentially denying what the other person wants, which isn't inherently, I mean, it's not healthy, but it's also sometimes, in relationships, sometimes maybe the person doesn't know that they don't want autonomy, or maybe it's something they've been told that they want. And And so you have to understand your partner and know when you can do that kind of push and know when you have to draw the line and say, no, this is not respecting them. So it's denial. And then you have disorientation, which is escaping the tension entirely by ending the relationship. So if let's say you tried the denial and it wasn't working and they still wanted autonomy and that wasn't what you wanted, you can end the relationship, and that is not orienting or disorienting you from that person. Alteration just means going back and forth between two sides of the tension. So some days somebody might act in ways that enhances their autonomous nature and individuality, but on other days you might actually want that interaction. So it's not necessarily black and white. It's not this camp or that camp. Sometimes it's a little bit of both. Think about a time if you were in a committed relationship that you're just like, hey, I just want some space today. I had a long day. I want my alone time. And as a respectful partner, they say, yeah, all right, cool. I'll be over here when you need me. So it's alteration. It's not picking one or the other. Segmentation is, this strategy involves dealing with one side of attention in some aspects, or in like certain parts of your relationship, and then dealing with the other side of the tension using other segments. So you, in the example I'm going to use from the textbook, because this is a clearer example than I could give. You have Moira and the names they choose here, and Albie. And Moira and Albie are in a committed relationship, and they are engaged. And so it says, and Moira is more leaning towards being autonomous, whereas Albie isn't. So when Moira selects segmentation, she might emphasize her connection to Albie by sharing intimate disclosures, but she might emphasize her autonomy by keeping her finances separate or retaining her own last name when they get married. Rather than going back and forth between the two sides, she's picking her battles, right? So sometimes she's like, nope, I'm going to be autonomous by keeping my finances and keep my last name, but I'll be connected and share my feelings and intimate disclosures with you. And so it's just assigning different levels to different tasks. So that's segmentation. Balance is compromising, finding a middle ground between both of them. So you don't have to be completely autonomous and you don't have to be completely connected, attached at the hip. Find that middle ground. So that's balance. Integration is trying to decide on things that'll satisfy both sides. It's kind of like balance, but if Moira still wants to be connected to Albie, but she gets to choose how to spend the time. I call it, this is not a real term, guys, but I call it this. I call it cohabitating. My husband and I have very individual hobbies. He likes to play video games, and I like to read books. And sometimes I just like to read a book, or he also likes to watch anime. And so sometimes what we'll do, we'll cohabitate, which just means that we'll be in the same room, but we're doing our own hobbies. And I still feel connected because we're together, and I'm filling my bucket because I'm doing something that I enjoy and I'm reading. And same with him. So that's integration, is like using your own, or finding ways to still be connected, but doing your own independent thing. Recalibration is reframing attention. So the contradiction between, say, Moira and Albie disappears. So instead of competing for autonomy and connection, they could agree that they can treat autonomy and connection as equally desirable. they might come to a conclusion that autonomy and connection are complementary rather than opposing needs. Again, that kind of goes, it would go more towards the integration of it, where, well, there's a time and place for it, and sometimes they can cohabitate together. And then reaffirmation. And that just means that you're embracing the tension. You're saying, well, it's just part of being in a committed relationship. There's always going to be something we don't agree on, and we just have to decide how crucial that is, if that's going to be a make or break in this relationship. And if it's not a break, then instead of fighting to resolve it, you just accept that that's how it is. Sometimes Moira might want to be alone. And so when you reframe it as such, you're allowing for it to exist without the tension. And so those are the 8 types of strategies that we use to manage dialectal tensions. Think about it. Are there things that you use? I mean, I already explained to you, I use integration. It's the best way for me. But I also use alteration. I think it happens most commonly. Sometimes I need that connection, but sometimes I'm like, don't touch me. I want to be myself. Sorry, I don't know what that accent was. I can't take it back now. All right. Let's get into forming and maintaining social bonds. So in this section of the chapter, a lot of theories will come up. So we'll talk about them. And first is the attraction theory, and that describes why we are drawn to others. And so we focus on 3 particular reasons, and that's physical, social, and task attraction. Social attraction, let's start with physical, I'm going out of order. Physical attraction is pretty much cut and dry. You're attracted to somebody based on their physical appearance, their physical assets, and what you visualize, what you see them as. Social attraction is being attracted to someone's personality. And then task attraction, which maybe is less common or not as well known, still common, but just not known as a definition. Task attraction is being attracted to someone's abilities and dependability. These are not exclusive. You can be attracted to somebody on multiple levels. It's like a goal, like a bingo, if you're attracted to somebody for everything. But this is just 3 different ways that we are attracted, or we see attraction to people. Certain characteristics also make somebody attractive. And so we think about, we're attracted to them by their appearance, which again, how they look, their proximity, how close you are to them consistently. So if you think about like workplace romances, right? If you're consistently around that person in the same field as them, doing the same things, or you're burning the midnight oil around them all the time, you're more likely to be attracted to them. Similarity, again, kind of foreshadowed that one there. How much you guys have in common. And then with similarities, they actually make entire dating sites based on matching you on your similarity. The textbook uses some absolutely outlandish examples. I actually had to Google them just to make sure they were still real, because I couldn't believe it. So the 3 that I confirmed was Amish dating, which is like an online dating. These are all online dating apps. Amish dating, gluten-free singles, and Star Trek dating. So Amish dating is Amish dating Amish. Gluten-free singles is people, I don't know if it's necessarily celiac disease or people who just choose to go gluten-free, maybe both. And then Star Trek dating is Star Trek fans dating Star Trek fans. So similarities, people, they make entire dating apps based on similarity. And then complementarity. Complementarity is just how their personality complements yours. It may not be the same. It may not be Star Trekky to Star Trekky, or Trekky to Trekky, I think. I don't think they use star in front of it. But even if someone doesn't have the exact same personality as you, it might complement yours. And that is something that we also consider an attractive aspect. Just like these four and everything we talk about, culture also influences some perceptions of attractiveness. And we've talked about that before. What might be a Western culture key for attractiveness may not be the same in Eastern cultures. All right, where are we at now? Okay, and now we're going into the uncertainty reduction theory. I'm going to touch on it, but it is something that we utilize so often. And I actually think that some of you guys used it in your media analysis discussions, which fantastic job. But I did this week post an additional reading, aptly titled, First Comes Love, Then Comes a Google Investigation. And if you didn't Google the person who you were now dating before, or if you've never done it, then you're lying. I immediately Googled. I also did, if you didn't know this, you could also public index somebody and see if they have any criminal charges against them. You do that to keep yourself safe. Doesn't matter, boy, girl, they, them, however you see them. Keep yourself safe. When I did that for my husband when we initially met, he only had a speeding ticket. So now we're married. But yes, now let's talk about the uncertainty reduction theory. URT suggests that we get to know others to reduce our uncertainties about them. And because we don't like to know, like the theory suggests that because we're motivated to reduce uncertainty, we get to know others. So there is none of that. I think we can all pretty much agree that it's kind of an ick to not know what's going to happen. It gives me the cringe. Oh my gosh, I almost said gives me the cringe. I won't say that. But according to this theory, the more we know about somebody is the more that we will like that person. But this isn't always true. Sometimes you find out more about a person and you're like, ooh, I actually don't like that. And that's okay. That's fine. So I don't even know if I said this, but I'll say it again. I did assign an additional reading. Oh, yes, I did, because I gave you the title. And so I want you guys to give that a read. It is a little bit longer, but it does go in depth about URT. And I think it is such an important theory that we use all the time. And this one investigates how we used online dating apps to settle that uncertainty in our lives. So going into more of it, we want to talk about predicted outcome value theory. And predicted outcome value theory suggests that the theory predicts that we form relationships when we think the effort will be worth it. So you're weighing the pros and cons, really. And so when we first communicate with others, we try to predict if we want to continue that communication and if it'll be worth it. So if it is, we use our approach behaviors. But if it's not, we use avoidance behaviors. And so approach behaviors, pretty much just like it sounds, we're signaling interest in getting to know somebody. And so if you think about when we try to initiate conversation or show interest, we've talked about this in prior chapters, nonverbal cues, verbal cues. Maybe we talk, oh my gosh, chromonetics or proximetics, essentially giving them our time and our space to show them we're interested. And then sometimes we might use avoidance behaviors, which is just signaling the lack of interest. We don't make eye contact. Maybe we reply less and less to them in text messages. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And then we get into our social exchange theory. And social exchange theory says that people seek to form and maintain relationships in which the benefits outweigh the costs. So again, we're weighing the pros and cons. Social exchange theory doesn't have to apply just to romantic relationships. It can apply to any sort of relationship that you have. And so comparison level, when we talk about social exchange theory, is our realistic expectation of what we want and think we deserve from a relationship. And then comparison level for alternatives is our assessment of how our current relationships compare to our other options. And so I posted an example. It's Gilmore Girls again. It's fall, so it's a perfect time for it. But I promise, like I said, I will try and find new examples. This is just something that I use because I can pinpoint these scenes like in my sleep. So in this example of social exchange theory, I want you to watch the video where Rory is going to her grandparents to ask for money to go to Yale. So if you are not familiar with Gilmore Girls, Lorelai, Rory's mother, has always had a tumultuous relationship with her parents. And that tied over to when she had Rory, her daughter, and that relationship was fractured as well. And so initially, when Rory got into a really good high school called Chilton, Lorelai bit her tongue, went to her parents and asked for money. They're very wealthy, to go to Chilton. And in agreeance with it, she would come to dinner on Friday, every Friday until it was paid off. So she eventually pays it off, and now Rory's graduating from Chilton, and they are not doing Friday night dinners anymore. So that's a little bit of backstory. So in this scene, Rory has weighed the positives and negatives of maintaining that relationship with her manipulative grandparents so she can go to school. So take a watch and see how we use social exchange theory in this example. And then we have equity theory. Okay, and equity theory suggests that a good relationship is one that has a person's ratio of cost and reward is equal to that of their partner. So again, we talk about the two-way street of friendship and relationships, and giving and taking at an equal pace so you don't feel undervalued or under-benefited. And so over-benefited is receiving money, or sorry, not money, receiving more from the relationship than you're giving. And then under-benefited is giving more to the relationship than you're receiving. So again, feeling like you're getting more or giving more. We want to try, and this equity theory says a good relationship, or we seek the type of relationship where this kind of give and take is 50-50. I'm using another good New Girl example, guys. Don't come for me, okay? This is an iconic scene. It's very comedic. But in this scene, there has been a little bit of a riff between Nick Miller and Schmidt. And Nick has acknowledged that there is this breakdown in the relationship, where Schmidt thinks he's under-benefiting from this relationship, and Nick clearly knows that he's over-benefiting, but he doesn't really know what to do because he's not someone who discloses a lot of information. He's very introverted, whereas on the opposite side, Schmidt is not. And Schmidt always shows his love and affection for Nick, whether he likes it or not. So whereas Nick may be autonomous, Schmidt prefers to be attached at the hip. So take a look at this video. If anyone has ever seen New Girl and you're wondering, I wonder what the video is, all I'm going to say is, give me cookie, got you cookie. It's just so funny. I love this scene. Okay. Now that we've known why we try to maintain relationships, let's learn about how we can. Relational maintenance behaviors are acts that we take to maintain our relationships. So we use an acronym, SOAPs. SOAPs starts with S, social networks. So all relationships we have are social networks. Think of it kind of like as a web. And when we converge those networks, we're more likely to have successful relationships. So the more we connect those webs, the stronger they become. And when we give the opportunity for our friends to meet other friends or friends to meet family, it strengthens that bond with those friends that say, you're letting me into more pieces of your life. Openness. we talk about this a lot. Openness is the willingness to talk with a friend or partner about the relationship. So it's the willingness to have open communication. And going back to the Nick Miller Schmidt example, Nick's not really an open person. So in that scene, when he does open up, it is a breakthrough for that relationship. Assurances, and that's verbal and nonverbal behaviors to show faithfulness and committedness to the relationship. So if a friend asks you for something or needs you for something, you may say, of course I'll be there for you. Like, you're my friend. And you're assuring them that this is something you're doing because you're their friend, and it's how you show that you care for them. And then we have positivity, acting friendly, cheerful, courteous. You're more likely to be well liked if you're friendly. Maybe think about a time where you had a friendship where maybe it started off positive, but you saw that your friend consistently turned negative, said negative things, did negative things, never really saw the bright side to anything, and how draining that might have been for you. And that is something that we think about when it comes time to evaluate that friendship. And then sharing tasks, reciprocating favors. I already said this one. You drive someone to the airport, maybe they watch your pets the next time you are out of town, something like that. And it's just essentially you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. All right. And so those are our relationship maintenance behaviors. We also have affectionate communication that helps us maintain our relationships, verbal expressions, direct nonverbal gestures, socially supportive behaviors. So affectionate communication is intentional and overt expression of feeling close, care, and fondness for another person. So that verbal expression could be simply, I love you. The nonverbal, it also, again, depends on culture, but it could be hugging, kissing. Some cultures, they put their foreheads together to show support and love. Socially supportive behaviors could be helping a friend with a project or lending them money. And these are milestone things for some people in relationships. You can remember the first time that your partner told you that they loved you. Sorry. Or the first time you told them you loved them. That will always be something I remember because my now husband asked me out. And later that day, it accidentally slipped that I loved him. And for the remainder of the day, I thought it was the adult thing to do to not speak with him. Worst part is we were together the entire day, like in physical presence of each other. And he clearly knew I was avoiding talking to him because I embarrassed myself by saying I loved him first. Not only first, but very quickly. It worked out in my favor, obviously. We are married now, happily. But yeah, so these types of expressions can also very, very well help strengthen a relationship. Sorry, gotta get this up here. Beautiful. All right. And then we look at where am I now? I lost my page. Oh, so to recap, we just went over a couple different theories. So we went over the social exchange theory, the equity theory, and what's the other one? Oh my gosh, guys, I'm losing my mind today. The equity theory, we went over the social exchange theory, and the uncertainty reduction theory. Duh, I talked about that one early. So those are all different types of theories that we think about when we talk about maintaining and developing relationships. But now let's move into stages of relationship development. And stages of relationship development, Mark Knapp, one of many very well-known communication scholars, developed a 5-stage model. And that includes initiating, experimenting, intensifying, integrating, and bonding. And so he says that relationship formation involves these 5 stages, and these stages can describe the development of any kind of personal relationship, platonic, professional, romantic. Although he often most people often apply this to romantic relationships. It is not exclusive to that. So initiating. Initiating is just that first interaction that you have. That might be asking people what their name is, where they're from, introducing yourself, telling them your name. Experimenting is the second stage, and that's conversation to learn more about each other. Still pretty surface level questions. Maybe if you meet them in a work setting, where'd you work before this? What kind of music do you like? What do you do for fun? This is all still basic knowledge, and nothing super deep. And then you go into intensifying. This is where you really move from acquaintances to friends, and you're increasing the commitment of the relationship by sharing deeper information. So you might also tell them that they're really important to you, and you're intensifying that relationship. You might share fears, goals, or secrets with each other during this phase. And then integrating is when the deep commitment forms. The relationship develops its own identity. When I becomes we. If you guys are millennials or all just know the term DTR, like define the relationship, that's this phase, the integrating. You've defined it. You're no longer just an I or a you or a we, and other people start expecting to see that you two are going to be together whenever they see you. And then finally, you have bonding. And bonding is the final stage of the model. And it says, NAP says, this is usually when people publicly announce a relationship. Think about it in modern times as going Facebook official. And this is because this is when you gain support and approval from others. Not necessarily always needed, but it's nice to have. So that's NAP's model of relationship development. And then we're going to next. We're going into getting out, and we're talking about we've talked about a lot of getting in and talking about how to maintain a relationship, but NAP also has 5-stage model for relationship dissolution. So he explains differentiating, circumscribing, stagnating, avoiding, and terminating as these levels of dissolution. Differentiating is seeing the differences as undesirable and annoying. And so while they may have always had these differences, it's not necessarily something that you may have seen as annoying or undesirable. So think about it as getting the ick. I know we've all been there. Whether we called it getting the ick or not, that is definitely kind of getting eye-opening moment of seeing the differences. Circumscribing is decreasing quality and quantity of your communication with them. At this phase, you may ghost them altogether. And ghosting is just cutting off communication immediately. Stagnating, if you haven't ghosted them, is the relationship stops growing. You may still be together, but you're just going through the motions of a relationship and not necessarily growing. Avoiding is creating physical and emotional distance, making excuses not to see them. In this phase, we also have orbiting within avoiding. And orbiting is continuing to interact with somebody on social media who has ghosted you. So maybe you're still liking their stuff on social media. Maybe you're still sending them DMs or sending them funny memes. It's orbiting. And then terminating, that's just formally ending the relationship. So that's what NAP describes as the 5 stages of dissolution. Dissolution, 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 dissolution. And then while he describes those 5, many communication strategies can help us repair relationships when they are damaged rather than dissolution. So apologies, which is saying sorry, taking responsibility for your actions, expressing regret. Explanations, telling them why you did what you did. Maybe that be, I didn't know, or I never wanted this to happen. Denial. Some people deny the actions. There's kind of different you can take two approaches to this. Denying the actions. So in the example the textbook uses, the first part of it is denying the action itself, saying, I didn't have dinner with my ex, saying that the thing didn't happen at all. Or denying that the action is wrong, and maybe saying, I'm allowed to have dinner with my ex. So there's two kind of ways to express denial. The next one is appeasements, making up for wrongdoing, compensation for the transgression, making up for wrongdoing and giving compensation for the transgression. So maybe you got into a fight or somebody did something wrong in your relationship and they bring you flowers to say they're sorry, and apologize, right? So you're getting some sort of compensation, and that's what appeasements are. And then there's avoidance, actively ignoring the transgression, the thing that you did. If you apologize and then you avoid, you can move past what happens. But if you go straight to avoidance, it's not healthy. So think about how you use these in your relationships, and which one do you think is the most or least effective? Finally, we are talking about relational repair strategies. The ones that I explained, they can be enacted together or separately. You don't have to, I mentioned that you can apologize and then avoid. And that's just saying, hey, I've apologized, you accept my apology, and now we've decided to bury the transgression and not speak about it again. You can combine those two. You can apologize, explain, appease, and avoid. You can do all sorts of things together. And they're not necessarily equally effective at repairing damaged relationships. A lot of it weighs on how damaged the relationship is and how willing each party is to work on fixing it. As always, we talk about cultural differences affecting everything. And in this case, we're talking about how they affect relationships, develop or dissolve. So terminating stage for same-sex couples in places where marriage isn't legal will look a lot different than heterosexual couples. And so I say this because the terminating stage for married couples who are heterosexual legally in certain parts of the world, they have to go through divorce, and that's its whole own stage of mess. Whereas a dissolution for same-sex couples who may live somewhere where same-sex marriage isn't legal won't have that legality hurdle to jump necessarily, at least the divorce portion of it. Same thing not same thing, but on the same side of differences, polygamous relationships may see the bonding stage differently because of how many people are involved in a relationship. So if anyone doesn't know, polygamy is a man taking many wives. And so in some places, this is still legal. And again, even if it's not legal, some still do it. So on a marriage level, they may be married to one, but committed to many. But bonding one-on-one is very different than bonding 1-on-4, 5. So that's different. And then arranged marriages, they also have more people invested and sometimes less say for the actual couple involved. So all these different types of cultural impacts affect how we develop and or dissolve relationships. Almost cut out the last slide of our presentation, and that is the online perspective of developing relationships. So we kind of briefly touched on it, but people form, maintain, and or dissolve relationships differently in online contexts than in face-to-face. So they do different ways of dealing with uncertainty, different relational maintenance behaviors, different strategies for maintaining dialectal tensions, and also deceptive relationship development. So there are multiple reasons, but the top 10 reasons for using social media, meeting new people, to share your opinion, because a lot of people are on social media, to network with other people, to research products to buy, to share photos or videos with others, to stay in touch with family and friends, to fill up your spare time, for funny or entertaining content, and to stay up to date with news and current events. And so, there are so many different ways, this impacts the way that we handle relationships as well. A study showed that college students actually utilize social media to initiate the initial stages of relationships. They call this creeping. So you creep on someone to get to know more about them as a passive way. And so you might look at their posts, their images, their friend list, their relationship status on Facebook. And so creeping is, like I said, passive. You don't require anything from the other party to learn about them. If you wanted to do it actively, you could ask their friends about them, or your friends who may know them about them, to learn more. And then you could also do it interactively. You could ask them directly, send them a DM. That's ways of dealing with the uncertainty. Ways of dealing with the relationship maintenance may include tagging people in posts and DMing them when maybe a meme or something you want to tell them. These are instrumental ways of communicating positivity, or posting your significant other on a special day to show appreciation, whether that be a birthday, a holiday, one of the national boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, husband, wife, all those kind of days, posting about them just to know that, showing that you're proud of them. But there's also different ways, strategies for dealing with managing dialectical tensions. So maybe you're with someone who doesn't like to post relationship stuff online. To maintain that, you could use denial, recalibration, segmentation, or alternation, which we've already learned these from a face-to-face perspective. From a online perspective, denial could look like refusing to discuss their relationship online. Recalibration could be reconsidering posts online to be part of the modern dating process. Segmentation could be negotiating what to and what not to post with your partner, so you guys decide together what you can and cannot post. And alternation could be disclosing sometimes, but keeping other things private. And then finally, there are deceptive relationship developments online. That's just a funny way of saying catfishing. And studies show that the top reason for engaging in catfishing, so people who were the catfish, was loneliness. People were just so lonely, and they knew that based on societal norms, they would not be seen as appealing to the people they wanted to be with. So they decided to be catfish. Now, I promise, that is the end of this lecture. So next week we will talk about close relationships like friends, family, and romantic partners.